They're back, and they're finally getting what's justly been deserved for this band for quite some time, and that's for coverkillernation, probably the most metal and the most extreme album reviewer on the planet here on YouTube. Black Sabbath is getting a discography review. Now, of course, the most fitting place to begin is directly at the beginning, where everything started. And this takes us all the way back to the year of our Lord 1970, with the very first record of the self-titled Black Sabbath. However, before we get into this, we need to get into some history. Firstly, we have to acknowledge the fact that Tony Iommi spent a brief time frame with the band Jethro Tull. However, left Jethro Tull within a very reasonable period of time, considering the way in which they handle things and the way in which he enjoyed handling things were very different. In Jethro Tull, Ian Anderson was the leader, the man. He was basically telling and calling the shots, and that went directly against Tony Iommi's personal philosophy. However, his experience taught him that if he really wanted this, and if anybody really wants to succeed in the record business, you have to work for it. The second acknowledgement is that the band at one point was initially called Earth before they were Black Sabbath, and the name Black Sabbath came from the name of a movie that was being shown in a theater around where the band was currently located. Earth, of course, strangely enough, they had to change their name because there's another British band at the time that had that name. However, it's strange that 30 years in the future, in the 1990s, once again, another band would arise with the name Earth, and would develop some underground and cult success, almost as though ushering in a new wave. With Black Sabbath, of course, what they ushered in was heavy metal in general, and Earth 30 years later would help perpetuate the modern drone movement. Black Sabbath, as a debut, can sometimes seem like a mess. Can sometimes seem like they're just argued jam sessions by a couple of hippies that decided to, use tritones as opposed to your traditional sounds from your guitars, and with vocals that were sounding like they were being shrieked by a guy that had no purpose being a vocalist. There's reasons for that too. It's the fact that this album had only 2 days to record, and one of those days was mixing. So basically, in 24 hours, not only did they have to have their material in gear, but they also had to perform it and get it down on tape. That way it could be mixed the next day. That way the LP could be shipped. Quite the daunting task, one would think. However, the result is actually what many people would consider to be the first true heavy metal album of all time. Forget all that proto-metal ideas, this was the real deal. The real, legit idea. Heavy metal, in its infancy, this is the afterbirth, ladies and gentlemen. Black Sabbath's self-titled record is the afterbirth of heavy metal's inception, creation, and eventual outpouring out of the womb of musical motherhood. This is an album that does bring us, of course, the Black Sabbath track, and also the widely popular The Wizard. And strangely enough, Black Sabbath's first single, which was entitled Evil Woman, which was a cover, does not appear on the North American edition of this album. However, it does on the European edition. In fact, it took a couple of decades in order for the Americans to actually hear Evil Woman, or should I say not hear it, but actually have Evil Woman appear on a version of the CD. It was one of the remasters, which is kind of an interesting idea considering there's a parallel there also with another discography review which I'll be doing, and that's the Pink Floyd one with their song See Emily Play, which is very hard to find on that album that it's off of. Overall, this is an album that you could definitely tell that they had limited ability in order to screw up or do multi-takes. In fact, there were no second takes whenever they recorded these songs. These songs were all done in one fell swoop. And whenever you listen to it, at some points, it can seem a little bit jumbled up. It can seem a little bit disjointed. It can really take you on a harrowing journey where you feel disconnected with your body and your mind. But that's exactly the way that Black Sabbath really intended this release to sort of be. It's how they intended their sound to sort of feel like for this particular generation. It was supposed to be something completely dark, something completely different. Really, it was something that was supposed to be influenced by the macabre, the H.P. Lovecrafts of the world, and the Gandalf the Greys and things like that. ideas that you never once really saw explored in music whatsoever. There might be darkened themes in the music of the past, however, it was not something that was as direct and as potent as was heard on the self-titled Black Sabbath album. For the first time in many young individuals' or old individuals' lives, they heard music that genuinely scared them. And that was the allure, that was the draw, that was the acclaim. However, it wouldn't be until their second LP, which I'm about to talk to you about once you click to the next video, where Black Sabbath really start to feel not only success, but also the controversy that comes with it.